So now we're going to go ahead and go into questions. And actually, Zahira has joined us remotely. So I'm going to go ahead and just ensure that she's able to be part of the conversation as well. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute a couple of us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the question box as well. We're happy to go ahead and work them there. Zahira, are you on there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us too.
Oh, no problem. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. Not feeling the best today, but I definitely wanted to be able to join in the call and make sure that everyone feels good about the information that they're getting about the review. So thank you so much, Joanna, for walking us through the process. That was very informative. And you know, for those who, as Joanna mentioned, who aren't able to make the call, they'll be able to access the recording of the webinar. While we wait to see if anyone has questions, some of the questions that we've gotten in the past have been really about kind of the technical aspects of cyber grants. So I want to make sure that we can sort of walk through some of those initially. And before we could do that, we received a question about emailing the link of the recording to everyone in case you want to review, and I believe we can do that. Joanna?
Yes, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. I'll go ahead and include that out today when I send on our username and passwords as well.
Great, thank you. So some of the questions that we've gotten in the past related to cyber grants really, again, are these like technical questions in terms of the functionality of the system. So one piece that came up a lot last year was that reviewers would go through the process and they would click recommend or do not recommend before they were actually done with the proposal. If that happens and you are stuck and unable to go back into the proposal, just let us know and we can have the person from Cyber Grants unlock it for you and you can go ahead and continue your review. So please don't ever feel that there's something that you're going to do that is going to kind of shut the system down in any way. There are lots of backups and we can usually recapture your work or unlock pieces, but just, you know, send us an email and let us know and we'll take care of it so that you can access all the material that you need to access. The other piece is, as Joanna mentioned earlier, is that the way that we're setting up the system is so that it will be anonymous, so that you won't be able to see the reviews of any other reviewers. If, again, you know, dealing with technology, if for any reason that is a problem and you actually can see the reviews of other reviewers, please let us know immediately so that we can have the people at Cyber Grants take care of that. Other than that, I mean, I think that for the most part, we're trying to make it as easy as possible. What we've done as part of the Funders Collaborative, the most difficult piece that we think will probably be to review is the CES portion, because that's going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past. And so at our last Funders Collaborative meeting, we did go through and kind of decide as a group what are some of the pieces that we can give as guidance so that for the reviewer, it's an easier process for you to go through the proposals, not just the first time, but also the second time around after we're able to have some feedback and back and forth with the community. But I think those are kind of some of the preliminary pieces. But if anyone has any other questions, we would love to answer them.
I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone just in case, but if we do get a lot of feedback, I'm probably going to undo that just to let everybody know.
Hi, Joanna. This is Lindsay Angelas with UniHealth. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for joining us.
Good. I just have a question just more about process. I know everybody's foundation is a little different on how we approach this. My understanding is that based on the design of the RFP is that you're intending, at least for the CES portion, that you should only be receiving one proposal for every SPA. So given that it's not necessarily that we're going to ranking various proposals in the same service area, would you say that the contribution on our end is really feedback, or via you, of course, about the project design or making sure it just meets all of the requirements that you've referenced in the RFP?
I think that definitely, and I think Zahara will probably follow up with this as well, but I think that we want not only recommendations for improvement, but the initial review would be more for that, and the final review would be more for the recommend or do not recommend. And Zahara, you may want to jump in on that as well. But
Sure, and I would say the first thing, Lindsay, is that we probably will have for the CES portion that people would get 2 or 3 SPAs so that you can see sort of the difference between the SPAs. Because it would be a little bit difficult to just kind of read each SPA in isolation and kind of think about it in the broader context. And I think it'll also help understand what some other SPAs are able to do that maybe one of the SPAs isn't able to do, and kind of understanding why those pieces are happening. And as Joanna mentioned, I mean, it is still, when we kind of went through this initial process, it's not our traditional process as funders, but what it will be is that your first review will very much be, okay, looking at the project design, what are some of the elements that they've included, and kind of giving some feedback in terms of additional information that you would like from the reviewers, and things that were great that we can also, when we go over this in the Funders Collaborative, we'll look at all the SPAs at the same time. So if SPA 4 is suggesting something that SPA 8 isn't, but it seems like potentially SPA 8 could do the same thing, then we'll have that information and we'll be able to go back to each SPA and kind of give them some guidance in terms of how to revise their proposal. But your final piece, it is going to be a recommendation, because even though it's not that we're getting 3 or 4 proposals from each SPA will request a dollar amount, and we need to decide as a collaborative whether or not that dollar amount is really appropriate for the work that they're suggesting to do. And so that will also be part of the analysis. So it's not necessarily competitive within each SPA, but it's competitive amongst the SPAs.
Great. So it sounds like there's a technical assistance kind of light component to it, and kind of a best practice sharing. That's helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we also do have another question that came in, can we choose how many proposals we have time to review? Absolutely. If you, we're across the board right now saying that no more than 4 will go to any one person reviewing. We've had certain requests for people who would like to review more, and we've had certain requests for people who don't have the time to do more than 2 for vacations or workload or anything like that. So please, if you have any specific number that you have time to do, please go ahead and send me an email with that number, and I would be happy to assign that number to you. Do we have any more questions that we can cover for anyone before we go ahead and get off a little earlier than we thought? Looking good. Okay, wonderful. Well, I will go ahead and make sure that the follow-up is with your username and password. I believe everyone that is on this call already does have one set up by our administrator. And then also we will go ahead and send the link to the recording. So go ahead and keep a lookout for that coming to you today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. And if you have any additional questions after today, just please let us know. Deborah is going to be your best contact for the technical pieces, and Joanna will be helpful with that as well. After today, in terms of like this timeline, in terms of when you receive the proposals to review and score, you'll also get the scoring guidelines that you need. We'll send that to you in paper form as well, because I know sometimes it's easier to just have things in paper. But again, if you have any questions, please let us know. We really appreciate everyone taking the time out of their schedule to review these proposals and really make sure that we have a great portfolio for this year's Funders Collaborative. So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much, Joanna, for all of your hard work and putting all this together.
Absolutely, absolutely.